In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we discuss issues of the underserved and marginalized communities and how we can best help to solve those issues. Tonight, we have a very special show with a very special guest. We have Miss Cheryl Blakeney. Cheryl Blakeney, a New York native now residing in Orlando, Florida, is driven by a God-given passion to help others. For 23 years, she has dedicated herself to mentoring young women, empowering them to achieve their educational goals through a scholarship program. With over 4 decades of experience in the financial services industry as a senior accountant, Cheryl's passion for numbers empowers her to simplify complex financial concepts for her clients. Recognizing the importance of financial literacy, Cheryl pursued a career in finance. She is committed to sharing her financial knowledge through various platforms and venues. Everyone deserves access to financial education, not just the wealthy. Cheryl is passionate about sharing her financial knowledge and empowering others as the owner of the financial education specialist of Financial Fitness Consulting, LLC. She believes in the power of financial literacy. Her motto, financial fitness, is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. It reflects her dedication to helping individuals build strong financial foundations. Cheryl seeks to collaborate with other local businesses, nonprofits, and churches to empower, equip, and educate their clients, congregations, and employees with the knowledge and tools they need to achieve financial success and build a brighter future with clarity and confidence. Cheryl has been happily married for 37 years. She cherishes her role as mother of 4 adult children and grandmother of 3 wonderful grandchildren. In her free time, Cheryl enjoys spending time with the family, volunteering, empowering others, and living life to the fullest. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring to the show Miss Cheryl Blakeney. Hello, Cheryl.
Hi, Charles. How are you?
Okay, your camera is off.
It says it's on. I'm not sure why it's not showing, but it says that it's on and it's not disabled.
Okay. Well,
Okay, I'm just going to be able to talk tonight.
okay.
Wow.
Well, let's just push through. Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get started with the show?
No, basically that was my bio, and that tells a lot about who I am and what I do. And 2 things I do want to add: that I love to help people. I love to give back. I mean, that's my passion. It's always been my passion to be able to give back to the community and make a difference.
Okay, can you tell us? Let's start with you as an entrepreneur. So tell us, what inspired you to transition from accounting to entrepreneurship?
Well, it all started with accounting. So what happened was, I've actually been in the corporate world for more than 4 decades. So I've been helping corporations and businesses with their profit and loss statements, their balance sheets. So I was actually invited to an event almost a decade ago to be able to help individuals with their finances. So that's what really got me into entrepreneurship.
Okay. And so did you just decide that, since you were just doing numbers, that accounting or financial literacy was just the way for you to just continue to reach back and expand the success of what you had done previously?
Yes, it was because, like I said, I love to give back. My pastor always tells us we were not put on this earth for us. We were put on this earth to give back to others. So combining my accounting and loving to help people, it was for me, it was a no-brainer.
Oh, wow. So how did you develop the vision for Free Your Money Now?
Well, basically, we all work hard for our money, but at some point in life, you're going to want your money to work hard for you. So when you think about freeyourmoneynow.com, which is my website, it's like, how do I go about freeing up my money so that I can live the financial abundance that I've always wanted to live? So it's not about what you make, it's how much you keep, but what you're doing with that money that you're keeping.
So what challenges did you face when starting your own business, and how did you overcome them?
Well, in the beginning, the challenges is I know the belief that I have when it comes to financial literacy, and it's just changing people's mindset as far as when it comes to financial literacy. Because, like I said, everyone deserves financial literacy, not just the wealthy. So for me, it was getting people to understand, changing their mindset more from a poverty mindset to an abundance mindset. So that was for me, that was in the beginning, just having people change their mindset, knowing that it doesn't matter how rich you are or how poor you are. Everybody can use their financial literacy to actually get ahead.
Okay. Well, what I love about that is that, just in when you talk about just dealing with the numbers, and you're talking about financial literacy and things of that nature. I think for a lot of the underserved, marginalized communities where people don't have that resource, I'm more than sure that the people that you reach out to and the people that you help are very appreciative that you're actually offering that kind of information.
Yes, like I said, financial literacy is the basic when it comes to your finances. Do you have a budget in place? Do you have an emergency fund? If you have children or grandchildren, do you have a financial future set for them? Do you have something, a goal in place? Also, when it comes to financial planning, which a lot of people don't think about, is having life insurance in place. You are your most valuable asset. So you want to make sure that you are protected, not just for yourself, but for your family as well. So when I talk about financial literacy, is giving them all the basic when it comes to your finances. But one of the main things is people don't know and people don't even think about is the rule of 72. So when we talk about financial literacy, the rule of 72 is so important because this is how your money grow. And if you don't know that rule, you are slowly losing your money daily, weekly, annually. But this is what a lot of people don't think about. Warren Buffett, the billionaire, says there's two things when it comes to money. Never lose your money. And the second rule he always says is don't forget rule number one. But in order to know that rule, you need to know the rule of 72.
And we're going to actually get into that a whole lot, but that right there definitely speaks volumes for a lot of folk that, especially those that aren't actually familiar. They're going to learn what that is tonight. I can tell you that. Um, what does a typical day look like for you as an entrepreneur?
Well, since I am still working full time, so I'm a full time accountant and I'm a part time entrepreneur. But when it comes to entrepreneur, everyone knows that's really a full time business at the same time. So for me, I do my accounting during the day, during the week, and then I focus on my clients, in the evening, on the weekends, because I want to be able to give them that education when it comes to their finances. So from an entrepreneur standpoint, like I said, I'm more of a part-time entrepreneur, but still doing it full-time to be able to help my clients.
Okay. So how do you balance being a business owner with your personal life?
I don't know if they call it balance because everybody said, they always ask me, well, when do you sleep? So I don't think it's more of, I don't think we would call it balance because sometimes you got to put a little bit more here or a little bit less there. So it's what you do with what you got. So, for me, as far as balancing, I make sure I do have time with my family, have time with my grandchildren, but also have time to be able to answer any questions for my clients. So it's not a balance like 50-50. It might be some days 70-30, some days might be 60-40. So it's not a balancing act per se when it comes to being an entrepreneur. You just need to know what you need to do to be able to give back to your clients, in addition to making sure you're taking care of yourself as well. Because that's so important.
So what advice would you give to someone looking to start their own business?
First of all, it's not easy. I actually started in a business really late. I'm a baby boomer, so I started in the business really late. But the one advice that I would give any entrepreneur, and this is what my mother gave me, not as an entrepreneur, but one of my values is don't quit. No matter what you do, times are going to be hard. You're going to have your up days, you're going to have your down days, but you're not going to know if you're victorious if you end up quitting.
Right.
So I instill that in my children and my grandchildren. Whatever you do, don't quit. And that's entrepreneur. Just keep going, because it is a light at the end of that tunnel. But if you stop, you're never going to get.
So
Whatever you do, don't quit.
So, can you tell us this? With your entrepreneurship, are you planning any expansions or any special projects at this time?
No, for me, it's more about giving back, educating. It's the education when it comes to your finances, which is the most important thing, because we all work hard for our money. But at some point in life, we want our money to work hard for us. So it's not about expansion, it's about being able to give the knowledge to those that don't know. We don't know what we don't know. It actually changed my life almost a decade ago. So I want to be able to pay it forward when it comes to financial literacy.
So when it comes to your entrepreneurship, are you doing any collaborations or working partnerships with any other companies as far as your business structure?
Right now, my aim is to be able to collaborate with nonprofits, church congregations, small businesses, to give them that information, when it comes to financial literacy. So for me, I aim to collaborate with, small businesses, whether it's a Boys and Girls Club, it's a community center, it's a mom's group, those nonprofits that don't have that financial literacy. And then even churches. I mean, we talk about, money is kind of taboo in church, but everybody needs to know it's not money that's evil. It's the root of how you use your money. So
Yes.
everyone needs to know, what is the foundation when it comes to your money? Are you a good steward of your money? So that's what I want to be able to bring to different church congregations. And then when it comes to small businesses, what is your succession plan when you're getting ready to leave your small business? Do you have something in place? Are you going to leave your business to someone? Do you have life insurance if you have a business partner? Do you have life insurance on each other? So that's the most important for me, the collaboration, to be able to bring my financial knowledge.
Okay. So how do you stay motivated and focused on your goals?
I am a very positive person, and everyone knows I am so positive. So I think for me is knowing that I'm making a difference. That is what motivates me every single day, knowing that I've made a difference. I don't want to make the difference. I want to be the difference in someone's life. So that's what motivates me every single day. And I'm a very positive person.
Oh wow, I love that. Because I'm one that believes that when we practice positive reinforcement, and we say it and we be about it on that daily basis, it's what we get back because we put it in the atmosphere. What do you think about that?
That is so true. That is so true. Like they say, you reap what you sow. Like you plant good seeds when it comes to positivity, your values, being around people that have the same values that you have. So yeah, I definitely believe in that when it comes to positivity.
So, what role has networking played in your entrepreneurial journey?
Networking is huge, especially in my business. I do a lot of networking. I've actually just had a women's summit that I just did this weekend. And actually, one of the young ladies, I handed out one of my cards, and she actually reached out to me today. And she said, I would love to find out what you do. So, networking is huge. Going out, if it's networking, virtually, if it's person to person, like I said, to be able to give this information to others, when it comes to financial literacy. So I am huge when it comes to networking. I've gave out so many business cards. And actually I had a person that I connected with on LinkedIn almost 7 years ago. And they reached out to me just the other day because they had a friend that actually needed life insurance. This goes back 7 years. So the power of networking is amazing. It is huge.
So, how do you measure success in your business?
Success for me is knowing that I have changed a person's life, one person at a time. So for me, I wear a lot of hats, based on my bio, being an accountant, being a mentor, and, being a financial educator. But success for me is seeing what you have done for another person's life. So let me talk a little bit about mentoring. Is that okay with you, Charles?
Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to mentoring, I work with young ladies that come from lower income families, and the program is called Take Stock in Children. So I'm a mentor, but I call myself a cheerleader. So knowing that I've made a difference when these young ladies graduate from high school, graduate from college, I've been doing this for 23 years, and actually two of my young ladies just graduated in 2024. One graduated from University of Central Florida, and the other one graduated from the University of North Florida. But they are still in contact with me. I met them when they were 16. They are now 24 years old. But I know that I made a difference in their life.
Mm. And now that's a very impactful thing to do. When it comes to your
Mhm.
community, because I think, when you say how you like to reach back, I mean, I know that
Mhm.
that's got to speak volumes, because when you start doing that and the word of mouth gets out, not only does it help business wise, but also for those that want to learn. I mean, have you had any of the young folk actually ask you about starting a business and talk to you about their future goals?
Well, I have not had them ask me anything about a business, but I have quite a few that are now mentors. So I know the impact of mentoring. They wanted to be able to give back as well. So it's not business wise, but mentoring, like I said, it's huge because everybody you can use a mentor. You're a cheerleader. You're there to put the belief in them until they can believe in
Mm.
themselves. So I have two of my students now they're actually becoming mentors. So to me, I know I made a difference in those young ladies' lives.
What has been the most rewarding moment in your career so far?
The most rewarding moment, which I would say from not from a business standpoint, but also going back to mentoring. So I had one young lady, she graduated back in 2016. She was the first in her family to graduate from high school.
Oh, wow.
Her parents did not graduate. Her grandmother did not graduate. She had a brother that was 2 years older than her. So I'm sitting in the audience watching her receive her diploma. So you talk about rewarding. That was the most rewarding experience for me of all my years of mentoring.
Wow. Let's transition over to financial literacy, because I know that not only is that one of the big things you do, but I think that's also one of the main reasons. I think we have people that are watching this show that needs to get some understanding and learn a few things. And
Mhm.
so let's just start with, why do you believe financial literacy is so important in today's world?
I believe it's important, especially to start when you're young, because we have young people graduating from high school. Some of them never seen a checkbook. Some of them don't know what a credit card credit score is. They don't know what FICO is. So if you know these things before you graduate from high school, before you go out into the real world, try to figure out what are you going to do with your money. That's why financial literacy is so important. It's just giving them the basic foundation when it comes to their finances. I actually had a young man one time told me, yeah, I want to make $1 million. Well, do you know what that means? But they don't think about that, so it's just being able to give them that basic foundation when it comes to financial literacy. And what does that mean? Financial literacy, we talk about financial abundance. Well, how do you get there? Financial literacy includes the rule of 72, which is the basic foundation with financial literacy. So it's just those little baby steps that people need to start. You can't see the whole picture. So just take one step at a time when it comes to financial literacy.
So as we're getting into this, so can you tell us about the rule of 72? What is that exactly, and what does it do?
Okay, so the rule of 72 is basically a formula that was created and made famous by Albert Einstein. Even though he failed math, he actually made this rule famous. So the rule of 72 is you take 72, you divide it by your interest rate, whether you have an interest rate on your credit card, whether you get an interest rate in your saving account, you divide it by 72. That is the amount of years it's going to take for your money to double. So basically, say you was getting interest rate and the bank was giving you interest rate at 3%. 72 divided by 3 is actually 24. Sorry, guys. It's 24. So that means every 24 years, your money is going to double. So imagine, Charles, I gave you $10,000. You're age 20. Okay. And so every 24 years, that money is going to double. So by the time you're getting ready to retire, it doubled 3 times because you're about almost 72, at that age. But you only have $60,000. But it took you almost 72 years for that money to double when you think about it. So that rule is so important. But the sad thing is a lot of people don't know the rule of 72. It works for you and it works against you. Right now, the national average interest rate in a savings of the banks across America is 0.18%. Take that same rule of 72. 72 divided by 0.18 is 400 years. So that means if you're putting your money in the bank at 0.18%, it's going to take your money 400 years to double. Now, we know we don't have 400 years in our lifetime, but this is what people don't think about when it comes to their interest rate. Now, let me flip that. The national interest rate for your credit card is about 21%. So take 72, because the same rule applies. Take 72 divided by 21. It's about 3 years and 4 months. But what that means is every 3.5 years, your debt is going to double. So if you had a credit card, you maxed it at $10,000, you never used it for the next 3 years, just based on interest alone, that debt is going to go from $10,000 to $20,000 in 3 years. And this is what people don't think about or don't know when it comes to their credit card interest.
So can you shed some light on the importance of banking money and saving money and investing money, and which is best?
Okay. Well, it depends on where you're at in life. Okay. So I always tell people saving and investing is totally two different things. But one thing I tell people is putting your money in the bank, you cannot save your way to wealth. There's no way, no how. If the average interest rate is 0.18%, you cannot save your way to wealth. So investing is so important, but you want to work with a very a confident person that knows a little bit about investments, because right now the stock market, the volatility, what's going on right now in the world, The volatility of the stock market is huge. So you want to be able to sit down and work with someone, especially when it comes to investment, because as you get older and you're close to retirement age, you don't want to lose your money. You're more conservative, where you have a young person in their 20s, in their 30s, they got time to lose their money because they have time for their money to grow. But when it comes to, saving versus investing, actually, I have the illustration. I do a webinar, so I have the illustration. We had two people. One person saved $1,000 and one person invested $1,000. One was 2% interest rate and the other one was 8% rate of return. So rate of return and investment interest rate is interchangeable, except interest rate goes with savings, rate of return goes with your investment. So based on my illustration, the person that saved $1,000 after 40 years at 2%, they went from $1,000 to $2,300. 40 years,
Wow.
Charles. Now, the person that invested, their interest rate, their rate of return was 8%. So that same 40 years, their $1,000 was almost $20,000. So almost 10 times more than the person
Right.
that saved. So investing and saving it's totally two different worlds, but you have to know what you're doing when it comes to investing, or you have to work with somebody that you feel confidence in working with when it comes to investing. And you want, especially when you're close to your retirement years, you don't want to lose your money.
Mhm. Oh, I know that's right. Look, you don't work too hard to get it. Now, if you lose it, oh my God, how you gonna
Right,
make up for that?
right, right, right. I mean, I had a situation where back in 2008, we had the housing market crash, and
You're
people
right.
lost like 40% of their 401k, their IRA. Well, I had a business partner. His mom lost in her retirement back in 2008, $196,000
Oh my God.
in her 401k. She was going to retire. She was a nurse. So she had been working with a financial planner because she had been in nursing for the last 15 years. But
Mhm.
would you believe she just retired in 2022?
Oh my God.
15 years later. That's how long it took for her
Mhm.
money to grow in order for her to
Mhm.
feel comfortable to retire. Because the more you lose, the more it's going to take in order for your money to get to the starting point. So people say, oh, I lost 10%. I only need to gain 10% back. You lose 10%, you have to gain 11%. You lose 30%, you have to gain 43%. Back in 2008, when people lost 40% of their 401k, they had to gain 67%. So if you had $100,000 and you lost $40,000, in order to get back to that $100,000, you have to have gained $67,000 just to get back to the starting point of 100,000 and grow from there. So can you imagine my business partner mom losing $196,000?
Wow. That's a
That's
lot of
almost
money.
$200,000 that she
Right.
lost.
Ooh, so can you tell us what are the most common financial mistakes people make and how can they avoid them?
I think the most common mistake is they're not sure how to get started. Should I pay off my credit cards? Should I have an emergency? Should I have an emergency fund? Everyone needs liquid money. It doesn't matter if it's in a bank account, if it's in a credit union, everyone needs liquid money. But I think what happens with a lot of people is, everybody wants to be rich or be wealthy, but you got to know where to start. So
Right.
I think the misconcept when it comes to money is it's not how much you make. You can make $30,000 or you can make $100,000. You can make 30,000 and save more than the person that made 100,000 because you know how to manage your money. That's the difference. It's money management because you have six-figure earners that actually are broke,
Mhm.
like literally are broke.
Yes,
So
sir.
it's
Yes,
how do
ma'am.
you manage your money? It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. But what are you doing with the money that you're keeping? Where are you putting it at? Are you putting it in an emergency fund? Are you putting it into life insurance, which you can grow, you can grow your cash value through life insurance. Are you putting it in a 401k? Is that company matching your 401k? It's just things like that. When I sit down with my clients, first we have to have a goal. What are you trying to accomplish? If you're trying to buy a house in the next 5 or 10 years, how do you get there? You got to start somewhere. So you have a separate account for money that you want to put towards your house as your down payment. So it's different things that you need to have in place when it comes to money management.
So can you give our audience some tips as to money management, how that looks like, and what are some of the things that they should be thinking about when it comes to managing money?
Well, when we talk about managing money, like, people either, work a 9 to 5, some people have a part-time hustle, some people are entrepreneurs, but it's the main thing that you need to have is a budget. And not just have a budget, but to stick with that budget. Because if you have income coming in and you have expenses going out, but you don't know, most people know how much they make every 2 weeks or every week. So you know your income. But if you have expenses and you're not accounting for it, then when it comes to, well, I want to put like $50 in my bank account, but at the end of the month you had -10. Well, how did that happen? Because you didn't have a budget in place. So working in corporate world, most corporations start their budget in September for the next year.
Right.
For the next year. So right now, my company, we just finished our budget in at the end of September for 2025. So just having that budget in place and sticking to it. Sometimes, some days, some months something might happen. You might have to dip into the money that you're trying to save. But I always tell people, be consistent. Keep yourself accountable for what you say you want to do. And I think that's what makes a difference when it comes to money management.
So how do you approach teaching financial literacy to individuals from different backgrounds?
To me, it doesn't matter what background you came from, what demographics, what your, as far as what you make, is just teaching them the financial foundation. So actually, every Thursday, I have a webinar called Financial Freedom Roadmap, and I show them the basic foundation when it comes to their finances. The rule of 72, having a budget, an emergency fund, having protection for your family, which is life insurance. If you're getting ready to retire, if you're within 10 to 15 years of retirement, do you know how much money you need to take you through your retirement years? Because what happens with a lot of retirees is like, yay, I'm 65, I want to retire. But have you thought about how much money you need to take through your retirement years? You see a lot of seniors now working at Walmart, working at the grocery stores, being baggers, being customer service, because they never thought about, I'm going to need this amount of money, in order to take me through my retirement years. You have your Social Security. Some people might have a pension. Some people might have a 401k. But, once you retire, you don't have a full-time job. So that full-time income is not the same. So you want to be able to, manage that money as well.
So let me ask you this. Now, this is kind of like quick fast. What are some suggestions you may have for people today, because of the uncertainty in times that we're in right now, and everybody's pinching? What are some suggestions for people today?
Okay, so, well, let's talk about people that's in the corporate world that have a 401k. So the volatility of the stock market, what's going on right now in the world. So we always say, don't take your money out. It's just write it out. Eventually it's going to pass at some point. We don't know when it's going to pass, but don't get scared, because that's what happened in 2008. A lot of people took their money out the market because they didn't know what was going to happen. But just stay firm, when it comes to, especially if you're working in corporate and you have a 401k. And do not look at your 401k every day. Don't even look at the news every day, because you're going to get frustrated. But if you're in it for the long haul, eventually it's going to rebound, when it comes to your money.
What strategies do you recommend for building financial security?
The strategies that I would recommend for building is, first of all, starting with the basic foundation. If, whatever you have, whatever you have left over monthly, see what you're going to do. So each of my clients are different. So whatever you have at the end of the month, what are you trying to accomplish? Because that's the main thing when it comes to strategizing. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to pay off your credit cards? How are you trying to pay off those credit cards? It's different ways to pay off the credit cards. You have a snowball effect, you have an avalanche effect. But I always tell my clients, whatever you do, if if you saved $100 for the next 2 months, if you paid off a credit card, celebrate those small wins because you want to feel like you accomplished something. So when it comes to strategy, put something in place. Like I sit down with my clients. We sit down and we figure out what are you trying to accomplish? Because if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, you don't know where you're going. So how do you get started?
That's
so the
true.
strategy, so the strategy is, what are you trying to accomplish? And we start from day one and then build from there. I actually back in 2018, I actually had one of my church sisters. She didn't have a savings account, and she kept telling me, "Sis Cheryl, I'm going to get a savings account." So what I told her was, start with $25 every 2 weeks. Start with $50 every 2 weeks. Start with something, because 5 years from now, you're going to be saying the same thing. Man, I wish I would have started that savings account. So the strategy is start where you are. Start with what you have, because you can't start with what you don't have. So the strategy is start with what you have. So if you have $100 a month, at the end of 2025, if you save for 12 months, you have $1,200 more than what you didn't have. Versus, no, I think I'm going to wait. So next year, you still don't have $1,200. So the strategy is always start where you are.
So, how do you help people overcome their fear of managing money?
Well, you know what? When it comes to money, it's a numbers game. And the thing about it is most people are really scared of numbers. And so they're very fearful when it comes to numbers. So I myself, I love numbers. Being in the accounting world for almost 44 years, I love numbers. So it's just being able to explain to someone when it comes to your numbers, like I said, what are we trying to do? But everyone has fears when it comes to numbers. Like, I mean, some people get anxiety when it comes to numbers and when it comes to, managing their money. But I try to take it one step at a time. I remember for me back in 2020 during the pandemic, I lost my job. My husband lost his job. We was living on unemployment for a year and a half. And I'm an accountant, but I knew the struggles. So I know the struggle people go through. So when
Right.
people say, Cheryl, I don't have it, trust me, I've been there. Emergency fund, that didn't exist for me back in 2020. I was literally living unemployment check month to month. So I know the struggle that people go through. So I want to be there to be able to help you through that struggle because I've been there. So I can talk because I walk the walk when it comes to finances.
So, tell us, what is your favorite financial literacy tip to share with others?
My financial literacy step would be my motto, which is financial fitness is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And what that means is just like when you go exercising, they said, the more you exercise, those muscles get strong. Well,
Yep.
your financial fitness muscles are your budget, your emergency fund, paying off your credit cards, debt management. What do you have in place for your children's education? Like in my case, I have grandchildren. I actually, almost a decade ago, I put something in place for their financial future. Before they even get out of high school, college, they already have something in place.
Mm. That's interesting. So, let's use that as an example. Are those things that you have to go a little bit more in depth with them to to get them ready to be financial savvy? Or is there anything that they just learn from just the tips that you give them on a daily basis?
Well, usually what I do, like I said, I do my weekly webinar and then I actually sit down with my clients, the one that's interested. I sit down and we go through, what are you trying to accomplish? What is your goal? So the financial foundation is the beginning, but you want to build on that foundation. So that's why I say it's a financial fitness muscle. You want to build on that foundation. If I gave you this tip as far as the rule of 72, so you have a credit card, go back and look at your statement. What is your interest rate? What is the balance on that credit card? Now you know, based on what I told you, how long it's going to take you to pay off that interest, to pay off that credit card. Prior to me giving you the rule of 72, you would have no idea how long it's going to take you to pay off that credit card. So it's those basic foundations and knowing what, how to get started when it comes to your finances.
Wow. How do you tailor your financial advice to meet the needs of young people?
I love to work with young people. But, the thing about young people, they don't think about, well, first of all, they don't want to think about retirement. I'm 20 years old. I don't want to think about age 65. That's so far in the future. So I always tell young people, don't think about it as far as retirement. Think about it as your financial future. Where do you want to be at in those years when you get ready to retire? Because retirement is not an age. Retirement is not an age. It's a number. How much money have I accumulated by the time I retire? You can retire at 40 years old. You don't have to be 65. You can be 45. Mm-hmm. So when I talk with young people, they don't want to hear retirement. Miss Cheryl, 65, that's so far away. So that's it. Think about it like this. This is your financial future we're talking about. So if you start saving your money now, by the time you're 65 years old, you can be a multi-millionaire. But we got to start now. And that's what I like to tell young people. Start now. I wish I would have known this information when I was in my 20s. I've been a multi-millionaire based on working. We've all been multi-millionaires based on the number of years I've been working for 44 years. So I've been a multi-millionaire, but can I tell you where that money is now? No. Because we don't think about it. So that's what I tell young people. Start now. I mean, I have millennials. I have Gen Zs. I have grandbabies. I teach them the importance of, they have a savings account. Grandma sends them money every month. 75% goes in the savings account, and you can spend the other 25%. But grandma, well, you can either do it my way or not get it at all. So you take it how you want to take it.
Okay.
And my daughter is on board with that.
Get that discipline going.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, discipline and accountability. But start young. I think financial literacy, they don't teach in high school. They should actually start in middle school and build on it for the next 4 to 5, 6 years before they even graduate from high school. Back in 2020, they did a survey of 50 states. Would you believe back in 2020, it was only 5 states that actually required you to have a financial literacy class before you got out of high school?
What states were those?
I don't remember, but I know Florida was not one of them. But now Florida is one of those states, because now they put into place any student graduating in 2025 on will need a financial literacy class. One of my students that I'm working with, my mentee, she actually had the financial literacy class now. She's a junior.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. So what role does technology play in improving financial literacy?
Well, technology is changing every day. So you want to stay up on, different things when it comes to your finances. AI is real. I just want to say AI is real. So when it comes to your finances, you can ask AI questions when it comes to your finances. What's the best online saving accounts that's going to give me the best interest? So technology is huge. Google is everybody's friend. Just getting the information. What is the best credit card you can have when it comes to your interest rate? The lower your interest rate, the less you're going to pay to these financial institutions. So technology is huge. Google University, AI that you can ask anything. So as time goes on, give the answer to our question, but you still need a human person to actually make sure that you're getting the right information as well.
Yeah, just as you mentioned that part about AI, because now people are actually creating their own artificial intelligence.
Oh wow.
And so as this technology is evolving every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, going into every year, it's
Right,
evolving.
right.
Like as we're talking right now, is evolving. So when you sit there and you just think about these things that people actually sit and take the time to write a code for these things to interact as people, and they're able to do things as a real person,
Hmm.
that in itself tells you that this technology is so about the here and the now and about the quickness. Do
Right.
you think that that's taking away from the kids, these younger kids' ability to critically think and to do things on their own?
I do. I really do because I mean, for me, growing up, we didn't really have computers per se, but kids are so tech savvy these days, but sometimes it's too much technology,
Yep.
and like you said, they're not thinking because either even when it comes to math, you put everything on the computer. You don't
Yep.
even have to think about it, which is really sad. When I was growing up, everything was longhand. You had to divide, you had to multiply. It's like you didn't put it in the compute, you didn't put it in a calculator. But the sad thing is, if you put the wrong information in the calculator, you're going to get the wrong information that comes out. So you have to know at least the basic, when you put stuff into the into asking AI or asking information pertaining to the computer. But I don't think critical thinking when it comes to young adults. Like I said, I have children and I have grandchildren, but the technology sometimes I think is too much technology infused in everything because they don't have those critical thinking skills.
Right. Now, I had a guest 3 weeks ago, and we were actually discussing that. And I was saying to him, is that just what you were saying, is that I'm so used to how we had to actually figure out the algebraic equations on both sides and get the answer.
Right.
We had to learn how to use that compass when we did geometry.
Right.
We had to use that compass when we did some parts of trig.
Right.
But now they've got this TI-83
That's
or this
correct. You are so right.
TI-85, and they put the stuff in the calculator, and there it goes. It graphs and gives you the answer.
I know. I know. I know. I know. That's so true. Like I said, I love math, but some of the math these days, I'm like, how do you figure it out? You know, like I've done really well with algebra, algebra 2, trigonometry, geometry, but this analysis of function, everything is the calculator. So I'm just, how does I don't understand how children learn. I really don't when it comes to math because they're putting everything in a calculator to get the answer. But if they had to do it longhand, they would have no clue what to do, how to do it, even how to get started.
Nope, they would not.
Hmm.
They would not. And so I just find that interesting because, as I think about like for the time that you and I were in school to now, this is like totally
Right.
different. So these kids don't really have to do anything. And that's why for them, everything is all about instant
Correct.
gratification.
Correct. Correct.
And so, like when we mentioned this process that you're mentioning, and when you talk to young folk about this financial
Mhm.
literacy and learning how to save money for retirement, what retirement is going to look like, Of course, they ain't trying to think about that because everything is so
Right.
instant.
Yep. Like 65, that's way too long, Mrs. Cheryl.
Uh, so, can you tell us how do you address the unique financial challenges faced by women?
Well, women, it's not industry, it's very male dominated. So, talking with women, and I think for women, especially, if they're married, they always feel, most, I'm not saying most women, but some women, usually the husband does the finances and things like that. And that's just the way society has been, taught as far as the man does the finances and things like that. So for me, it's really, really important because I actually had a young lady. She got divorced, but her husband did everything. Like literally, I was asking her, so how do you pay your credit card? Well, my husband does it. I mean, like we were starting from like from scratch, like on a piece of paper. Okay, well, we need to go through, you know, what does your budget look like? Well, my husband did that. Okay, so what part of the budget did you do? Well, I paid this bill, which was the electric bill. So, so for women, we are very smart women and we are very financially savvy. So it's just, making sure that we understand what we need to do with our money, because we are the number one retailers when it comes to, buying things and things like that. So we are the number one retailers when it comes to, using our money. So we want to make sure that we're going to be using it wisely as well.
So, what is the most important lesson you've learned about money management?
The most important lesson that I've learned about money management is for me, because I've been in the corporate world for so long, is having that monthly budget. That's what's important, having that monthly budget. You can stray away from it, but it's really, really important when it comes to money management because, like I said, you have six-figure earners don't know how to manage their money because they probably don't have a budget in place. And a lot of people don't want to think about budget because it's like a negative connotation. So some people call it a spending plan. But the income that you have coming in and the expenses that you're going out, what part of that can you spend and what part of that are you saving?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's transition over to your mentorship, and again, it's like to acknowledge that it's Women's History Month,
Mm-hmm.
but also to shed some light on this wonderful program that you do where you mentor these young women, these young girls.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's absolutely just one of the best things that you could possibly do. And so, can you tell us what inspired you to become a mentor for these young women?
Okay. Well, it actually goes back to 2002 because I started 23 years ago, and
Mhm.
I was at a company, and they had different vendors come for community service. So
Mhm.
before I started mentoring, I used to be a tutor for kindergartners. The program was called Master Academy Tutoring in the school system. I was actually tutoring kindergartners. Never
Mhm.
imagine in the world that you can tutor a kindergartner. So when I
Mhm.
was doing this program, it was through my county, through my school system, Seminole County school system, and that's when I found out about the mentoring program. Because I've always had it on my heart to be able to give back from a young age. From the age of 9, before I even started counting, I wanted to be a math teacher. So I always
Mhm.
wanted to give back to be able to help others. So my senior year of high school, I took an accounting class. So that's how I ended up in accounting for the last 42 years. But I still had that passion to be able to give back. So for me to be able to mentor these young ladies, knowing that I'm not helping them with math, I still get to do my accounting. I still get to do my numbers, but now I'm making a difference. Just like being a math teacher, I'm making a difference. Being a teacher, it's a hard job. So for me,
Mhm.
being a mentor is so, so rewarding. And like I said, I've been doing it for 23 years in the state of Florida because it's actually a program through the school system and it's called Take
Mhm.
Stock in Children. And basically, The application is sent out to all eighth graders that are on free and reduced lunch. They get to apply for the program. We send out over 2,000 applications every year. We just finished interviewing our set of eighth graders that's now going to be in the program. So we went from 2,000, it was narrowed down to 200, and we just selected 30. So it's a process. They fill out the application. They have to write an essay why they feel they qualify for the scholarship. The parents have to write an essay why this scholarship is deserving for my child, and then they do a panel interview. So I've been part of that panel interview. It's like 3 of us. I've been part of that panel interview. So imagine being 8th grade, you're like 15 years old, and you're sitting in front of 3 adults it's like interviewing for a job. But those young people, they do amazing. So our mentoring is female on female and male on male. So like I said, to be able to give back to the, be able to give back to the program. Mentorship is that being a cheerleader, because they come from lower income families. So some of my young ladies, they come in with low self-esteem, but I want to be able to build them up, to let them know, believe in yourself. You can do whatever you want to do. You just got to believe in yourself. And if they don't believe in themselves, I'm going to put the belief in them until they can believe in themselves.
Exactly.
That's what I'm going to do as a mentor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is so wonderful. I mean, I tell you, that you get some special kudos, because I'm serious, because, again, that's what this platform is about, especially reaching back to the underserved, marginalized communities. But as the guests that have come on this show, everybody's doing their part, but you in particular, I mean, it's like you're like right there in the school system doing this, and that's really wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it has been amazing. So actually this year, so we have 67 counties in the state of Florida. So actually I was nominated and awarded the Seminole County Mentor of the Year for Seminole County. Then my information was submitted to the state of Florida. I was just awarded and recognized for the State Mentor of the Year for the whole state of Florida. I just came back from Tallahassee last week. I was recognized, and it was so rewarding. I mean, it was dignitaries there from the Department of Education. It was other mentors there. It was students that was there, but it was just, I can't describe the feeling, but I know being a mentor, I have made a difference in some of these young lady lives. One of my mentees, in next month, in April, she will be 40 years old. I started mentoring her when she was 16. So that's almost 24 years. I've known this young lady, and I'm still in her life to this day. She's married, she has children, and she's one that's actually becoming a mentor. So I know the difference that I have made in these young ladies.
How do you connect with and inspire these young girls from lower income families? How do you inspire them?
Well, we don't talk about where they came from. We talk about where they're going. What do they want to do? What do they want to accomplish? What are their dreams? What are their goals? When I mentor these young ladies, like I said, some of the young ladies, some of the parents, didn't have a chance to go to college. But then some of the parents try to live through their child as far as, well, we want you to do this, but that's not what they want to do. I can give you a perfect example. I had a young lady, she was really good at photography. She now has a photography studio, but her parent wanted her to do graphic design. She did not want to be a graphic designer. That was not her passion in life. So I always told her, do what works for you, because this is what's going to fulfill you. This is what's going to make you happy. I understand your parents, because I remember when she was going to visit the different colleges, and I said, well, do you want me to talk with your parent? Because they was like, well, let's try this school for graphic design. But she's like, no. And so my last name is Blakeney. So most of my students can't say my last name. So for the last 23 years, I have been Mrs. B to my students.